ladies and gentlemen, GM, how are we all doing today? Guys, I hope we're all doing well. Again, happy Tuesday, whether it is your morning, afternoon, evening time, whatever time zone you're in. I appreciate you guys tuning in today's amazing Game GPT space. I'm back with another banger. Before I proceed with anything, right? Reminder to the panel and the audience, you guys want to do me a favor, interact with that space link on the very bottom right button, right? Make sure you're reposting, like, commenting, bookmarking, right? For those in the audience, you guys want to come up and speak, but you can't, right? Leave your comments down below. I'll be making sure to check that out as well on today's topic, right? And so for today, right, I'm actually really excited to talk about this one today. What's happening to AAA game development, right? So what is the good? What is the bad? What is the ugly? Right? What are all these things that we can talk about today? I'm really looking forward to it. But first, let's just check in with this beautiful and lovely panel. Going first, man, to Devin behind the Game GPT account. Devin, what's going on, man? How are you doing today?
Everything's great. GM, how's everybody doing? We're doing our weekly space at a different time this week. It is about 2 hours later in the day. I like it a lot. I'm in East Coast USA, so and I know Bossa, you're West Coast, so it was very early for both of us whenever we did these weekly spaces. So I'm hoping we have a larger turnout and more of our community is going to be able to be on the space this week. Really excited about everyone on the panel and really excited about the topic we're going to be getting into today. As a gamer, I'm sure we're going to have our own subjective opinions on games that are really hot and games that can be improved upon or maybe didn't do so well. But also, I think we have a unique perspective as gaming companies to figure out what games we actually personally can look at it from like a business perspective or like an objective business metric perspective and really talk about that. So really excited for it and really excited to get into the conversation as we go.
Let's do it. Let's do it. And I agree, man. This is actually a way better time for all my East Coast people and West Coast people, man. So again, thank you everyone that's now just tuning in. Let's check in with everyone else on this panel. We have Django on the behalf of Cody with us today. Django, what is going on, brother? How are you doing?
GM, Basa. I'm doing fantastic. Getting my steps right now. I'm going back to my habit of doing walks during the spaces. Honestly, today is pretty exciting topic, if I say so myself. What better audience of people to actually talk about AAA gaming and all the maybe not the best steps they are doing than the future of gaming, which is blockchain. So I'm super excited for today's topic. Happy to be here. Thanks for the invite, and let's get it.
Dude, man, we love productive people as their own spaces. Django, make sure you hit those 10,000 steps, man. That's awesome. Love to hear that. Look, let's pass it over really quick to Connor here. Connor in the fellow co-host slot. Connor, what's going on, man? How are you doing?
Yeah, doing really well. Sorry, my X was lagging for a second, so I had to rejoin. But it looks like I can hear everybody now, so I think we're all good.
Yeah, man. Look, honestly, what's a day without rugging on spaces? This is every single day. But look, Connor, really appreciate you, man. We also have the amazing Exterio here with us today, which I believe is always represented by nonetheless Slayer herself. Exterio, what's going on? How are you guys doing today?
What's up, Baza? Good to be here. Good guests. Excited for this topic. It's something I chat about with some of my friends in the Web2 side a lot as well. So looking forward to chat with you guys today. All good on my end. You know, we are gearing up for a busy push to the end of the year. So excited to be here.
Amazing. And it's actually amazing to hear from you, Slayer. I think we haven't spoken each other on a space in a long time. So really cool to hear from you. Glad you're here with us. We also have the amazing Everreach Labs with us today. Everreach, what's going on? How are you guys today?
Yo, Basa. Thank you guys for inviting us, and also thank you all for attending. We definitely appreciate the hour that you spend here with us present and everything. So, yeah, I mean, I'm wrapping up still from Gamescom, and I'm currently in London. But yeah, this is a super hot topic, really, really big topic, and something that we talk a lot about at the studio. Actually, we were ranting about it about 20 minutes ago in our general chat. So this is great.
Oh, man.
Thank you.
You guys got all the juice packed up today. It's my job to bring that juice out of all you guys. So amazing. Everreach, thank you so much for attending today's space. Let's just check in with Medicine with us today. Medicine, what's going on? How are you guys doing today?
Hey guys, how's it going? How's it going, Balsa? How's it going, everyone? This is Henry, the CMO from At the Scene. I was glad to join spaces with you guys. It's good to stop a little to do stuff for the TG of the project and discuss something gaming related that I can relax for a while. And yeah, glad to be here tonight with you guys.
Dude, it's funny. I was thinking the same thing. It's like, I love how we're talking today. It's still about gaming, but it's not about Web3 or anything related, right? So I feel you on that. It's a good little break. But yeah, first of all, this is the complete panel for today's space, right? There is a couple more spots open. So if anyone in the audience wants to come up, ask some questions, even share their own thoughts on this, right? We'd love to hear from you. But of course, one more reminder, feel free to interact with that bottom right button again, or pinned at the very top of the Jumbotron, right? Make sure you guys are liking, commenting, anything you guys can do to show love around today's space. That would be absolutely phenomenal. And that being said, look, I think there's a lot to unpack today, right? Even in itself, the title, right? The good, the bad, and ugly. I think there's many ways that we can tackle today's topic, but let me just hear it from you guys straightforward and raw, right? Many of you guys have said in your intros that this is something that you've been talking privately, maybe within your teams, maybe within your general chat, right? What's currently wrong with AAA game development, right? And I actually want to toss this over to Devin first to kick us off today. And then, of course, to all the panelists, if you guys hear something, you guys want to chime in, feel free to raise your hand with the emoji or feel free to unmute as long as you're not cutting people off. That's all I ask. But Devin, kick us off today, man. What is currently catching your attention around AAA game development? Could be the good, could be the bad, could be the ugly. What does that look like to you, man?
Yeah. And just to start off, I anticipate this is going to be a topic we'll probably stay on for the rest of the space. I think everyone has their own opinions. And like I was alluding to earlier, I think everyone has their own subjective opinions, being a gamer themselves, but also an objective opinion, actually running a business and looking at things like that users, everyday gamers, may not be interested in, like revenue, like retention, like what everyone else is doing, and kind of like adding new features into a game. So I think there's going to be multiple angles in which we can talk about this. I'd like to open it up, and by all means, anyone can talk about whatever perspective that they want. But I'm going to open it up as like more of a gamer myself, and then talk about the business aspects later on in the space. In terms of my own personal experience as a gamer, have been gaming since the beginning, probably middle school. So I don't want to. I'm going to date myself, but well into a 20-year gamer now. Um, I've always been more of a social gamer versus like a solo type gamer. So I played baseball competitively into high school and college, and the games that I play with are usually with people that I've played sports with. So even today, like whether it's League of Legends, whether it's Fortnite, whether it's Warzone, it's more so kind of like to share a social experience with my friends online and offline, and to kind of just reconvene and check up on each other, but also have fun in like a structured way. And that means that at least in my gaming consumption, that like live ops are definitely games that these games that are game as a service, like constantly updating, constant seasons. Usually that means they have a subscription or battle pass model always happening going on. And the first thing that I would kind of go to whenever we go down that rabbit hole is like, who's done it really well? The companies that I just talked about, whether it's Apex, whether it's Fortnite, whether it's Warzone, and the like. But there's also some that have came and gone with that same model, right? The first ones that come to my mind, and it's the most recent, is Concord, which is another kind of like MOBA, like hero shooter type game that was launched for PlayStation, and it was one of their hero shooters that they really tried to pump up. That was going to be like an Overwatch replacement. I'm looking right here on Google, and its approval rating is like 6% actually liked it, and no one's. It's actually a really new game launched this year, but it didn't really do that well. Another one along the same lines is these like hero shooter games is Anthem, which is another game that was made by BioWare and EA that launched 3 or 4 years that also is kind of competing in this hero shooter space. Didn't do too well. Amazon also had their own crack at kind of like these free-to-play hero shooter type games with a game called Crucible, where Amazon kind of like put that as a game that you could play with Amazon Prime. Ended up not kind of breaking into kind of these games as a service space. I think Friday nights when I don't have any plans, or like whenever I have a spare weekend, which is now and again, but not that often. I love playing solo player games, and I think that the economics and how that game becomes good, like these legendary games like Baldur's Gate 3, or whether it's Cyberpunk or Skyrim or all of these, they're a little bit different, these game as a service games, but that's my perspective. That's where we're going. I think people have done it right and people have done it wrong, and there's a lot of competitions in the space. But as a gamer myself, I think we're winning over at the end because a lot of people are making games. Some of them are going to win, and some of them are kind of just gonna not stick against the wall when they're being thrown. So either way, as a gamer, I'm actually excited for everyone, whether it be the Max 7 tech companies or just indie games, constantly making really great stuff. I'm sure we'll get into the bad, and I'm sure people may already have kind of like a what people may be doing wrong in the space. But that's my first response.
This is a solid response. First of all, Devin, man, you got to add me on League, bro. We gotta tear the rift up.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Absolutely. Yeah, and second, speaking of gaming titles, right? I love all the titles you mentioned, and recently, and I'm pretty sure my active gamers have been paying attention to this title, Black Myth Wukong, right? Absolutely beautiful, beautiful, beautiful game. I personally, I just haven't played it yet, but what I like to do is actually watch streamers play it instead, because I like to see initial raw reactions from creators, because that to me depicts almost like 80% of the experience, right? I don't know if everyone here has seen that game. Highly, highly recommend checking that out, right? But would we say, and again, I saw, I think it was trending yesterday on Twitter, right? That Black Myth Wukong is aiming to be game of the year, right? So I know we're talking about AAA games, but I wonder, is Black Myth Wukong a category of this, right? I see Slayer here with her hand up. Slayer, would love to hear your thoughts on this. Please go ahead.
Yeah, the second you mentioned Black Myth, my hand came up. I just want to say personally, as a gamer, that's all I did over the weekends. A good chunk of my Exterio colleagues have also been quite hooked on the game. I'm kind of the opposite of the previous speaker. I mostly came up on single player RPG games, not so much in the multiplayer world. So that's very much in my wheelhouse. First of all, I would absolutely call it a AAA game. I mean, if you look at the graphics, it's one of the reasons that it's been one of the most anticipated games for years, because people see the trailers and they're like, oh my god, it just looks absolutely gorgeous. I'd say like the first 10 minutes of the game, there's just times when I stopped and didn't go forward with fighting and just looked over the edge, and I'm like, look at this gorgeous scenery of like being in the mountains, right? And in terms of how that's brought excitement into the space, one thing I hear a lot from my friends and kind of feel in the Web 2 world is there's obviously good games out. There's games that people are still playing. If you look at the stats, it's like of the top 10 games that people are spending time on based on hours, a lot of them are games that are quite old, right? They're not games that are coming from the recent few years. Have a few hits like Elden Ring. Black Myth, I think, really brought a lot of energy and excitement back into this space. I have a friend who recently told me that she just went out and bought a PS5 so she could play the game. Right? She was like, oh, I was looking at PCs, but that seemed too complicated. So I'm just going to go buy a PS5 because I need this game. It's like you're going to go buy a console that's more expensive than the game itself, so you can play it. So I think that's been, as a gamer, exciting for me to see, those moments that I kind of miss, where whether it's a TV show or for a big game like this, the last time I felt that was Elden Ring, where something comes out and during that first opening week or weekends, almost everybody was talking about it, and it creates shared moments, right? Like we had a moment where we're on a team call, somebody's showing up late, so in the first 5 minutes as we're waiting, someone just kind of sheepishly goes, hey, is anyone playing Black Myth? And then like 5 of us jump in like, oh, how far are you? Like, how'd you beat this boss? And I think that for me was the magic of games, right? If you're talking about the good, like the ability to bring people together, even if it's something like a single player game, where it still becomes a social experience because you're sharing, because you're talking. It gives you something to compare or get competitive with friends about too.
I love that example actually because it is very true, right? I have a friend who's actually grinding his Black Myth Wukong journey, and every single night he's either texting me like, "Dude, you can't like you need to watch this replay of how I beat this boss," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this guy's insane." But I mean, Slayer, I wanted to ask you a question, right? Is why is it that we're and maybe this just goes across all gaming genres, but I feel like whenever there is that new refreshing title, right, that it really does take a big breath, or it takes like a big, how do I say this, it makes a big impact on us gamers, right? What is it specifically about Black Myth Wukong to you? I mean, you mentioned the graphics, you mentioned the gameplay, you mentioned the storyline, the social aspect, right? Is it a I can't even, I'm gonna say this word, it's like replicable for other games to achieve something like what Black Myth Wukong has done? Or is this something where once a year, maybe even a couple years, where a title will come out, it'll catch people's attention here and there, right? How would you describe this to be replicable for other gaming titles?
Yeah, I would say what as a gamer, what I can feel when I play this title is so much care and attention went into it to make it a unified, really immersive experience. And it's something that, you know, sometimes studios might cut corners, try to save money, try to find places where they can take shortcuts or things, and those things, all those little details, when they come together in the right way, the gamer can feel that, right? And so talking about Black Myth, like your it's based on a classic Chinese, folklore tale. Most people here would probably know that as the story that's Journey to the West is based on. It's something that I personally, as a Chinese American, like it's a story I grew up with and I've seen so many iterations. But down to the casting for the voice acting, the scenery is absolutely breathtaking. And then even, something that I normally don't spend time looking at, but you go into the bestiary where every time you meet an opponent, um, it unlocks a page in a journal where it describes that opponent, and you see the image in this like classic Chinese painting style with the poem, and then some like description of the thing. So it's like every single little detail they really thought about, and it comes together in this experience. And it's something different because we don't really see a lot of games in the West, especially that are based on Chinese aesthetic and story. Usually, when we get Asian influence, it's more Japanese. So I think another part of that is it's also something different from what the audience has been seeing, right? There's a lot more like Western stuff. You should look at God of War, Elden Ring, based on that kind of mythology. So I think it's that combination of when you see something that's just a really solid experience where from multiple aspects, you can tell that the team really cared and put a lot of love and consideration to make it very consistent and high quality. And then it's just something fresh where it's like, oh, this is different. It looks different. It feels different than what we've seen before.
Absolutely. And just now thinking of your take and what Devin was saying earlier, right? He mentioned trailers. And I would say that Black Myth Wukong was the first game in a while where the trailer actually matched the actual gameplay. Because what I realized these trailers do, they'll sell you on this trailer like, yo, check out the gameplay trailer. Everything looks so sick, right? And Devin mentioned Anthem. I was so pumped for Anthem. And then when the game came out, right, there was a lot of bugs. There was a lot of, delays and issues on fixes. And I was like, man, all this, the trailer got me so hyped. Then when I play the game, I'm like, man, I just feel like I got let down. But Black Myth Wukong seems to be the exact opposite of that, So first of all, Slayer, thank you so much for sharing. And please share more of your streams, share more content around Black Myth Wukong. We'd love to see that from your end.
Yeah, absolutely. The last thing I want to like kind of bring and maybe opening a new topic is I think another thing that's really important for me with that game is I think it really does cement or introduce the idea that China is a legitimate player now in the game development space. And they've been a solid on mobile with Genshin Impact and all the MiHoYo games. They really show that they can get into the free to play cross-platform space in power, being able to draw so much revenue. But this one's like, entry into the paid console PC AAA space too.
No, that's a really great point. I'm gonna actually, well, first of all, before I pass it over to Medicine, Django, I saw your hand go up moments ago while Slayer was speaking. I don't know if you want to still chime in, Django. Would love to hear from you, and then I'll pass it over to Medicine.
It's amazing to me that, we have a topic for today, but suddenly the entire topic is swayed by one title. And it just happens to be that this is the title, it seems like, at least for 2024. And we kind of, I feel like it's just so fitting because it probably encompasses the entire topic. What is the good and the bad with AAA games? And I feel like already right now, for all the audience, including myself, I have not played, I have just seen the trailer. Um, but for all of us who are part of this, we kind of probably put this into our minds that this is a AAA game. And honestly, the reason why I put my hand up a little bit earlier, because I think there was one topic that we discussed that was the attention to detail. And I remember, I think it was yesterday, I read that the development team was scanning landmarks of some like sites out there in China to to show them originally inside the game. So this is basically showing the dedication and attention to detail. And I feel like this is only possible if you are truly passionate. It's not even about, obviously you have to have resources, you have to have capital, you have to have the talent. But if you are not passionate about delivering something like this, you would not go this length in order to deliver, that kind of genuine experience. And it feels like instantly, once people actually recognize it, it's like a sixth human sense that you can see it, that this was done with care. It's like looking at some like ancient, cravings or ancient art, which that the artist had spent hours upon hours, first of all, learning, mastering the craft, and then delivering whatever is the artwork that they want to deliver. In these games, the games that are actually born out of passion, I feel like this is the good part of actually having like really good gaming experiences. So the reason why I brought my hand up earlier is to just like put emphasis on the fact how much the team behind Black Myth Wukong has actually, thought about the development and making sure that what is depicted in the game is actually same as the original. And on a individual or private note, I have spent well over 10 years in China. I used to live there. I cannot really read, but I can speak Chinese quite okay. And it's kind of, I don't want to say like it's close to my heart, but I kind of relate to the entire, fact that the team behind is like Chinese and is actually paying homage to the Chinese culture.
And I think this is actually where, again, culture in gaming is actually starting to become more relevant, right? And I hope other AAA gaming titles understand this and they integrate it in a way where it is appreciated, right? It's not just used for the game's sake, So Django, first of all, I love how I'm hearing car driving like pass by you, man. That's how I know you're really putting in that work. Let's toss it over to Medicine here. Medicine, would love to hear your overall thoughts on this. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I don't want to go for too long, but look, I as an expat that has lived in China for 15 years, I've seen a lot of gaming companies. I've worked in many of them. Right, the latest one being Tencent is the biggest one everyone knows. So I think that it's time really that the PC gaming industry in China gets some recognition because there's so much talent in the country that's normally people just tie to mobile games, but really there are lots of talented people here. And apart from that, I think the points shared were very interesting, but I just wanted to make a comment, right? So this game was developed for around 6 years, I think. And the last experience that I had with a game that was so hyped up and that I got very disappointed was with Cyberpunk, right? So the difference I would say is that Cyberpunk is from a public gaming company that had the pressure to release the game.
I unfortunately have to agree because that game also did let me down. But look, I want to go to Everreach because Everreach, you said that you were discussing, the issues around AAA game development, and I would actually love to hear the tea, if that's the way to say it, right? What was the tea? What was the conversation? What are things that you and your internal team were discussing, right? What do you find wrong about AAA game development today? Everreach, please go ahead.
Yeah, just I'll talk about the topic we were talking about, but we had yesterday and going into today, we were looking into the reasons why Concord failed, right? So we have our entire team is people who've been like our lead designer and especially our CRO. They've been in the space for almost 30 years and they've been designing and doing all of this, and they were kind of going at it in our chats, and we're all in agreement here that like something here that I think is a little different that that may not be mentioned in this space was we were talking about the time it takes to craft a AAA title. There's a lot of complacency with the modern development teams and how long it takes to really create a good game. And something that we, agree on at the studio is that like we reject the notion that it takes 3 to 5 years to make a really good AAA game, despite it being universally accepted, in the major studios without question. But there are plenty of developers and games and who have proven this to be the case otherwise, with previous like previous titles and studios, really with like an agile team, good like experienced management and processes in place and proper leadership, like you can produce a game much quicker than that that's of high quality. And so we like we were talking about this too, like right, the more time a design team has, the more that leaves room for a loss of focus. There are lots of creative dead ends that can come from that. And it also allows for a higher tendency to wander off course during the development process. And if you're playing through certain titles, and if you're really, really paying attention and really know what to look for, you can start to feel this and you can pick these moments and these little pieces out. And this is just something that we were talking about earlier. Like there's no reason why a game should be in development for 8 years. There's no reason why something should be, not to call out Star Citizen, but there's no reason why a game should never ever finish, right? Like it should, at least get to a point where you're adding other features and stuff to it. But staying in beta for a long period of time like that is just like ridiculous in our point of view. And even look at what we're doing in Web3, right? Like we're creating titles and doing things at such a faster rate, because not only do we have to meet the expectations of our communities, but we're establishing these new workflows, and we're like learning how to become more efficient studios and stuff like that, and we're kicking out games. We're just now seeing the rise of higher quality games in this space and everything like that, but it's only been a few years. A lot of us too, I can't speak for other studios, but really I'm not trying to call anyone out though either, like in terms of development and when you started development, but has your game really been in development for X amount of years, or was it just the idea and the marketing and stuff that you were getting together? Like when did you really get your dev team, and how long and how quickly were they able to put that game together? The answer is actually pretty quickly, and we all exactly Game GPT, and the answer is actually pretty quickly. So it's if you keep that pressure and you keep your dev team working and you've got everyone passionate and in line and all of your process in place, you can create a good game in a shorter amount of time. I won't say in 1 year, but definitely in a shorter amount of time, at least for that core loop and everything.
Woo, man, Everreach taking out the bullets today, shooting in left and right. I love this. And it's funny, a title that comes to mind every time someone talks about, delays and just timeline wise, right, is one of my favorite series ever, and it's The Last of Us, right? I believe the first ever Last of Us came out 2013, right? So what is that? 11 years ago. Crazy, right? And then Last of Us Part 2 finally came out 7 years later, 2020, right? Now, again, like what Everett was saying, I don't want to undermine how long these games actually take to build. Maybe it actually did take 7 years to build, right? But, right, it's that little timeline gap. I mean, dude, 7 years is a long time, right? But one thing that Everett highlighted, and I actually want to expand a little bit this more, right, is this crunch culture, if that's how we can coin it, right? This crunch culture, this developer burnout, right? And I feel like the gaming industry is notorious for crunch periods where devs work extremely long hours to meet deadlines. But then, unfortunately, right, it contributes to burnout. And so, of course, this not only affects the health and morale of the team, but, right, it can impact the game quality, right? And I feel like this is exactly where this gap between releasing a trailer showcasing people like, yo, this is how dope our game is, right? But then you take another 1 to 2 years, and then when the game finally comes out, it's like, yo, why aren't things not matching? And so is crunch culture something that is, I don't even know, like is it manageable? Is it something that we can stick to, right? Do we need to give time these devs more time to work on these AAA games, right? Everreach, just one more question from you, then I'd love to pass it around, right? Is, do you think this crunch culture is actually something extremely relevant that actually doesn't get talked about enough in the gaming scene, right? And how can we actually give, obviously more time to devs, but how can we just be more realistic with this approach? Curious to know from your end, Everreach. Please go ahead.
Yeah, and this is something that we really, I mean, it's been a topic for a while, burnout in the game industry, and myself coming from it. It's definitely rough, but in the recent years, I would say definitely, post COVID, studios have been a lot more aware and a lot more conscious of the mental health of those who are working on the titles, and doing things that they can do to try to mitigate and make that better. But at the end of the day, we do of course still have the deadlines and things like that, and so it is critical to address this. And I'm also big into mental health and everything myself. I've a master's in psychology and in neuroscience, so super into this topic, and I'm very passionate about it. But there are ways to improve your internal processes. There are ways to improve your communication internally, and there are ways to work as a studio all together and set things up in a way that allows you, again, one, to still meet those deadlines, but allow your employees the flexibility and the freedom that they need to feel, to prevent that burnout. Because a mark of a good studio and a mark of a good leadership team is to be able to create that space to essentially prevent burnout, right? Like if you're a lead on a team, you should have the tools, and you should have grown at this point to know how to take care of yourself and how to take care of your team and other people present, and have that open line of communication. It's part of the responsibilities. So taking that to the next level and innovating off of it, and being able to meet the demands and the needs of the time and the attention span of those who, of our current, community audience. We're not going to be able to change what society wants. We have to conform to it. And with that, we have to update our processes internally and change what we do. And we have to grow as individuals to rise and meet that as well, and do the best we can.
I love this. Right? And you said in your previous take, right? The beauty of Web3 sometimes is we are able to ship out products faster, right? But that also kind of means that we increase the risk of quality sometimes not being up to its par, right? But look, maybe this is something where we're still kind of figuring out, right? And we truly just got to understand how long it really, really takes to build a game, right? Like, unless you're a dev, you would know this. I myself, I'm not a dev, so I'm just going based off what I hear from other devs, But Everreach, I love it. Thank you so much for sharing. I believe we have Medicine back, and I actually wanted, and I'm so sad he cut out earlier, but now that he's back, Medicine, you were just leaving off the point that Cyberpunk was a very big disappointment for you, right? And I'm pretty sure across the entire gaming community, many others can agree with you, I myself included. So would love to toss it back to you, Medicine. Why is that, right? What are some of the ugly, the bad around Cyberpunk that made it such a bad experience for you? Medicine, please go ahead.
So yeah, like it was a game that I was expecting for a long time, and as I said, uh, the company behind Cyberpunk is a public company that has people that were pushing, of course, them to release the game after so many years. You got to get back your investment and so on, and they pushed a game that was not ready, right? So a game full of bugs, full of issues, with very bad NPC AI, with things like flying cars and stuff like that. That's, I had friends that were also waiting the game for, I don't know, like a couple of years, and then built PCs to play the game, and then when they start playing, they were like, "What the hell is this?" Right? So yeah, I think that the difference between that and a company like Game Science, the company behind Black Myth Wukong, is that it's a smaller studio, right? It has less than 200 people. Even though it got investment from companies like Tencent, these guys really took their time to do the best that they could to really build a product that they knew was ready for the release, right? I mean, the company behind Cyberpunk, they knew the game was not ready, but they had to release it. They had the pressure to release it. So I think this happens to all the big gaming companies right now, the AAA gaming companies. Normally, like, they reach a point where there's so much pressure, the team is doing like the overtime so much and still can't finish the game, that they're like, okay, so just let's just push it, and then we'll just bring a patch, we'll just bring an update. And this kind of became common in the industry, and I think that's not, it's not very nice, you know, because now I don't normally get games after the release. I wait, right? So when you deliver a game, when you build a game like Black Myth: Wukong, what's so crazy about it is that the game is bringing increasing tourism in the regions that are portrayed in the game, right? There are places in China right now that are being more visited because of the game. So how crazy is that? A game is making even more people to travel to China due to the beauty of the game, right? Because the guys, they really put their time and heart into it, and I'm sure that the devs behind many of the big gaming companies, they're able to do that. But like I said, the pressure, you know, the everything behind it, it makes sometimes a little complicated. But at the same time, I think that releasing a game that's not ready is really not something that's very acceptable. And now, like I said, I just don't get when they release it. Yeah.
No, you're saying a lot of facts here, right? And maybe again, Black Myth: Wukong seems to be it's like the knight with shining armor, right? We needed a game like this in the industry for quite some time now, right? And it actually, something you said, I think you mentioned like small studios. Is this like a massive change that I'm seeing across the industry where, if I'm not mistaken, right, and correct me if I'm wrong, Helldivers 2, right? When Helldivers 2 came out, that was like my first, I guess, read upon where someone, I think it was on YouTube, right? Someone was covering how indie studios, these smaller indie studios, are making a name for themselves by literally taking a huge share of the market, right? And it's titles like Helldivers 2, maybe even Black Myth: Wukong is now added to that category, right? But we're seeing this rise of smaller indie studios literally like blow out the water, from metrics to feedback to, you know, just overall general, yeah, feedback from all these gaming communities. And they're like, people love these games. And so it makes me think, in the future sense, maybe 5 to 10 years from now, right, will these smaller studios be a competitor to these AAA gaming franchises? I 100% think so, right? Slayer, I see your hand up went up here. Slayer, would love to hear from you. Please go ahead.
On that topic, you know, going back to what I said when I was talking about Black Myth: Wukong and how, you know, I think Medicine also jumped in on that. You can tell from playing the game the passion that came through, the care and the attention to detail. I think sometimes it is easier for a smaller, maybe you can call it indie-sized team, to preserve that kind of passion, those details, because, you know, there's, when an org is smaller, you have less of that breaking up into different subdivisions and siloed information, where sometimes, from friends who've worked in those kinds of companies, it can sometimes feel like you're kind of just one person in a factory and you're kind of a little bit more removed, let's say, from the overall vision, right? Whereas if you're on a more indie-sized team, you know, my direct example is my partner who I live with is actually art director in the Web2 space. And you can see with his game, like, how much passion he and his team have. They're talking every day. He can still, it's still small enough where you can have direct touch points with everyone and everyone's really aligned and moving towards that vision. I think that kind of passion is easier to come through sometimes when you get a team that's so big and you're in that AAA space and you're on the pressure from investors, from users who, you know, are expecting a sequel or a certain level of quality from you. The same things that caused Cyberpunk to maybe release early, went too early versus when they were ready, can also sometimes cause compromises in that creative vision or direction, or maybe cause decisions that kind of take away some of that passion that players feel.
Right. And the moment that passion is gone, I think it's actually kind of hard to win a player back, right? And I think it was Medicine as well who was just saying, right, patch after patch, right, fix after fix. I would rather just buy the game 3 months later after it's all said and done, right? But what if we all lose interest in that game by that time? You know, so there's so much factors. That's what I'm learning from today's conversation, man. There's so many factors that go into what makes truly not even just a AAA game successful, but any game successful, right? And which is why, again, you know, we're so early in this space with Web3, and I know many of us here in this panel today, you guys are all building your own games, right? I would love to see where we're all at 5 years from now, 10 years from now, right? What titles have come out of this space that has the same amount of impact, such as Black Myth Wukong or such other titles. So first of all, 46 minutes in, I absolutely love all the takes and everything I've been hearing so far. We do have a couple of guests though that haven't spoken yet, so I do want to go to them, and I actually want to go to Haunted Space, because Haunted Space, I believe you were rugging it a little bit in and out at the very beginning, but it seems like you are now stable. So that being said, let me hear a hot take, Haunted Space. What anything, just anything. AAA gaming, what's wrong with it? What's a take that we haven't heard yet on today's panel? Haunted Space, we'd love to hear from you. Go ahead.
So yeah, regarding the takes that also the other took on the space, I want to first of all agree with all the parts of the dedication to the building of the AAA games. And I want to focus a little bit on the timing, because we mentioned earlier about the releasing a game once it's finally ready to be released. And maybe it's because investors are pushing hard. Maybe it's because the community is losing interest in your game. But I saw many games that released are too early out to be played. And this led to basically a crash over their communities and stuff. And especially what we are doing right now is focusing on the building something that is already at a good stage and can be really played and enjoyed once it's ready. So we prioritize the launch when the time is correct, instead of when people are ready to push you and stuff like that. So I agree a lot on that part. And yeah, that's it.
No, and again, maybe this is just something we have to keep reiterating, coming back to the drawing board, working at it time and time again. Haunted Space, I appreciate you, man. A random thought that actually came up to me, right, is do sequels to franchises such as Call of Duty, man. Oh my God, I love using this as an example, because I don't know how many Call of Duty titles there have been, right? But we have probably one of the most anticipated ones, which is Black Ops 6, coming out this November, right? And me, myself, I'm really excited for it. And it's not even because of multiplayer or anything. The zombies, man. I'm a huge zombies fanatic, and it looks absolutely amazing, right? We also have an introduction of Omni movement, which I love as an FPS player, right? Sprinting backwards, sprinting diagonally, diving backwards, like all these new little features that called I forgot, I need to do my research, but this current game dev team behind this Black Ops 6, right? I think they finally understand what the community has been looking for. But something that's gonna come to mind, right? Franchises like Call of Duty, do they I guess introduce fatigueness sometimes, right? Or stagnation? Maybe that's a better word, right? Maybe there's a lack of interest with every single new title that comes out almost every other year or every 2 years, right? Where a new, maybe new Call of Duty, whatever, insert franchise title, it comes out, but it's the exact same thing. It's almost like we're buying a DLC. It's like, what's the difference here, guys? Right? So I see Devin here with his hand up. Devin, I would love to hear your thoughts on this, man. Go ahead.
Yeah, so many things I wanted to call back to. I think there were some great things talked about on today's space, but I'm going to cover the most recent ones and what you were saying. The thing that I think ties into what Slayer was saying and what you were saying, Bossa, is effectively like this big company problem. And it is the strength of AAA companies that they can create the huge budget game that is high fidelity and higher quality than anyone else can actually do. But it is a huge weakness in some things that Slayer said. And the essence of what Slayer said was effectively like culture and passion doesn't scale. Whenever we have hundreds of people on a project, it's really hard to capture that essence of like the first team of 10, just because the intimacy, the level of detail, the amount of thought, the obsessiveness that small team has is really hard to scale out to hundreds of people. And some people have done it correctly, but it's really hard. I think the reason for that, and also the reason, Bossa, why you're saying people just create more sequels of the same games that that worked the first time are actually the same exact, like the cause is the exact same. And it's whenever a company goes public or whenever a company is heavily scrutinized by a wider population, there's these things called quarterly earnings reports that that's pretty much standard practice for public companies, right? It is no longer about the passion projects. It is more about can we meet the financial projections that all of the companies have set for us to come for the next quarterly earnings report? Can we can we meet all of our expectations? And can we downplay all of the negative things that have happened in the last quarter? And I think that that makes public companies have to take less risk and do things that they know that works. And I think that is good if you're creating some type of like money making machine that is a game company, but it's terrible if you really want to live on the if you want to create a company that lives on the edge of creation, that's doing things that's unique, that's trying to do things that haven't been done before. There's kind of like these antagonistic incentives actually pushing you that way. So that would be the reason why we have Call of Duty Black Ops 6. And by the way, those were like Call of Duty Modern Warfare 1 was like the game that got me into gaming. Playing with all of my friends after school or after like sports practice, that was like the thing. So I get it 100%. But it's kind of just the way that things work. Calling back to some other things, right? Like I think I'm not sure who it was because we had so many amazing people. I think it was Everreach that talked about how games can just be done faster now. I think there are things to learn from these indie companies that AAA people may not be doing. In the times of AI, obviously we're an AI company and we use AI to our fullest to create mobile hyper-casual blockchain games, right? I think there are things inside of AAA games nowadays that are being solved with AI. Like the dialogue that you have with NPCs is definitely an AI solution now. Being able to create like huge expansive maps, whether it's like on a Skyrim map or Night City and Cyberpunk, like all of these things cannot be done immediately through AI, but they can be augmented through AI to be done a lot faster than before. So I think some of the huge, reasons that makes AAA games having to be made with AAA budgets are going to be, I think solutions are going to be found to drastically lower what it takes to make a game. And I guess you could say that that's going to benefit AAA companies, but I think more likely it's going to be, just like I alluded to a few minutes ago, the people who can be more risk taking because they don't have public investors breathing down their neck, and they have that ability to create in a almost like judgment free area because they're an indie company. It's going to be those people who are actually going to take AI and use it and harness it in ways that people who just need predictable revenue can't. So I'm really excited for that. Obviously, I'm kind of tooting my own horn. That's exactly what we're doing. But yeah, that is where I wanted to go with it. I'm sure there are a ton of other things that we can talk about. We talked about a lot of things, and especially what maybe we turn this into another space again where we talk about the actual financials around it. One of the things that I think is a little antagonistic, me just playing kind of like maybe not being too naughty, but just wanted to take the other side of an argument because that's kind of the person that I am. Bossa, Medicine, I'd actually challenge you guys a little bit on your take on Cyberpunk. I actually really love Cyberpunk. And you could say that it was a quote unquote failure, but when you look at the numbers here, like total revenue since launch is like 850 or million USD. But at launch, they spent about $300 million to make it. Granted, at the beginning of launch, a ton of controversy, a ton of issues, but they spent another $125 million to fix everything, and that took all of their expenses to just about $425 million to actually build what everyone plays today with the DLC included into Cyberpunk. So when you take the spread on 850 million in revenue to 425 million to create, I think it was actually profitable once you take all of the percentages of like what the marketplaces take and all of that. So it's really interesting to see what is actually a successful game. But I'm totally with you. And just to show my own personal perspective, I'm not a person who can play games on release just because I have so many things going on. So I didn't even get onto the Cyberpunk bandwagon until the Netflix series came out. And then I was like, oh gosh, this is cool. I want to play it. And by that time, that I guess push that made it into the mainstream of like, hey, you should try out Cyberpunk. The game was already ready and the game was amazing. So my experience was completely different from what you guys had. So I just wanted to put my other kind of, I guess, other side of the fence view on how things are going. And yeah, I'll pass it around to anyone else who has any It looks like Connor has his hand up, but I'll put us around to anyone else who had anything they wanted to say.
Yeah, let's toss it over to Connor first. Connor, please go ahead.
Yeah, and there's another example I can think of that kind of is on the same line as what Devin was talking about was No Man's Sky. When No Man's Sky first came out, it had a lot of the same issues, maybe even worse than what Cyberpunk had, because they had promised so much in the game to have this like basically infinite explorable world and all of these things that it was going to promise to have to basically keep you playing the game forever. But on launch, people realized the game was essentially empty because they had hit a deadline. They had basically had to do the minimum of what they needed to do to get a playable game and playable worlds. But if you went out too far, you basically just started reaching like dead zero, like nothing on a planet. There's nothing really to do, and you got bored very quickly. And like Devin, I didn't play No Man's Sky until they had started sort of their redemption arc, I guess is what you called it. They started adding free DLC basically every 3 months. And I don't know the numbers as good as Devin does for Cyberpunk. My brain doesn't work that way, but I know they spent a significant amount of the money they made on the initial launch to start releasing these DLCs, start filling in these planets, and instead of just kind of like putting the game into maintenance mode and trying to extract microtransactions. They do have those in the game, but a lot of the money went into free DLC. So basically, every time I hop on No Man's Sky now, because I play it maybe a few times a year, there's literally an entirely new game for me to play, and it feels really good to see a company go from, I think they've released their game in like 2016. The game's like 8 years in at this point, and I would arguably say it's like 10 times the game it was on release and probably better than what they initially promised. So I think it's this weird dynamic of like, you can have these slip ups. Like if you do hit a deadline and you do hit something where you can't push out the first thing you promised, I think it sort of goes into the same thing Cyberpunk did, what No Man's Sky did. And there's a few other examples I can't think of immediately, but it's kind of what you do in the follow up. Like there are ways to keep your community happy and bring new people in based on just how you take like these weird problems or things that come up and then how do you spin it.
Man, you guys are hitting up on the points here. It's funny, Devin, as you were speaking around Cyberpunk, I'm over here and I have the Steam marketplace open. I'm literally hovering over the download button because I uninstalled Cyberpunk a long time ago. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I should get back onto it. Look, we are very tight on the hour, guys. I just want to say, dude, I'm not even a game dev, and I've learned a lot just about even the surface level of what it's like to be building a game. And my respect for every single one of you guys has gone up 10x because, dude, it's going to take some time. It takes some effort. It takes some, quality to even push out something solid, So I respect all the game devs here, all the teams here that are taking it up a notch here in this space. Look, guys, I want to just shout out all the panelists here. Kokodi, and this goes to the Jumbotron, right? For those that want to follow and stay up to date with all these panels, what they're doing. Kokodi just recently announced a new partnership in Game Night with World Shards, right? So for those that are involved with Kokodi, please go ahead and check them out, right? Also, right, on behalf of Game GPT, they're going to be hopping on a few spaces this week, one of them being Pixels in about an hour now, which I will be there. So Devin, I will see you there. On the behalf of Exterio, we have the team. Shout out to Jeremy, right? They're going to be attending Korea Blockchain Week along with Token 2049 Singapore. So sounds very exciting. I'm having FOMO, right? On the behalf of Everreach Labs, they just announced 320 plus founders passes have been staked. Man, massive. Congratulations, guys. And of course, from Haunted Space, new season launch. Season 5 has finally arrived. So for those that are wrapping up season 4, be a lookout for season 5. It's literally right around the corner, right? And finally, Medicine here. You guys are on an epic stream carnival. I love that, by the way. I love seeing teams taking up streaming on this platform. It's absolutely useful as a marketing tool. So kudos to every single one of you guys, man. You guys are absolutely killing it. I respect every single one of you. And I look forward to, once again, having you guys on a future Game GPT space. One more reminder before we officially wrap up. If you're not following the Game GPT account, please go ahead and do so. And second, to all my amazing friends and panelists on today's stage, please shoot them a follow as well. But that being said, guys, I wish you all an amazing rest of your Tuesday. Tune in next week for more spaces, and I will see you guys next time. Peace out.